Obsession is not your edge, it's your cage. Every founder who eventually burns out was at some point obsessed with succeeding. But every founder who eventually succeed and stay sane while doing it stopped needing the scoreboard to move before they did. They found work that pulled them without them needing to become obsessed with winning. If you're sitting at 10K, 20K, 50K, 100K a month for a lot of months and you're obsessed with breaking through, that might be the reason why you're not breaking through. You're too obsessed with it. If you are like the average obsessed founder, I know that last week you rebuilt something. Your landing page, the offer, the deck, something that was already good enough, but touching it felt safer than actually doing what you needed to do. You avoided the hard tasks, the outreach, the 20 conversations, signing the partnership, and instead, you did things you didn't need to do. You finished your day exhausted, but not from the right work. That seems like a discipline problem, but it isn't. It is a deeper problem. You're a fighter throwing punches in the wrong ring. This is why your calendar fills with busy tasks, why your mood fluctuates. And when you talk about your business, you only talk about the outcomes you are yet unable to achieve. You rarely talk about the work. You rarely talk about the things you do on every single day. And that's validation seeking that is created by unhealthy obsession with results you can control. And that's why you actually avoid the fight that actually matters. What nobody will tell you is that obsession is just validation addiction. Every rep you put in your business needs a scoreboard to move to justify it. You need revenue to go up. You need someone to notice. But the moment validation disappears, execution collapses. You just don't care as much if people don't know about what you're doing. And that is the problem with obsession, that it was never built to help you sustain elite performance. It was designed for performing versus an audience. And everybody who told you to become obsessed, they were not lying. They were just sharing what they themselves were living through. But you will never find a truly successful entrepreneurs talking about being obsessed with winning. Because those who win are never obsessed, they're aligned. Most people just don't know the difference. So they call it obsession. The hours, the sacrifice, the relentlessness, that absolutely looks like obsession. But truly is the complete absence of internal resistance. When you are putting in every single day, 10 plus hours, you don't force them, you're pulled towards them. It's not obsession that powers you, it's internal alignment. And let me give you a map that you have never had to understand what you need to be summoning from the inside out to become successful. Understand that the work that actually moves the needle, the conversations you need to have, the offers you need to send, the things that actually change everything for you come with no guarantee of applause. This is why if you do them just for the validation of an audience, at some point you will stop doing them, because the most important work must have an intrinsic deep why. And if this is not clear, this is when you feel like everything is a war. You grind, you force, you white knuckle every hour, and it works until it stops working, because pushing, grinding, hustling has a ceiling. Every time you show up and need to force yourself to do the work, you are losing yourself a little bit. And at some point, the cost exceeds the return. There's a better way though, which is being pulled. When you work on someone that is genuinely yours, you don't need to force it. You move towards the hard things because not moving feels worse. Rejection doesn't stop you, it just redirects you. A bad day does not become a bad week. And that doesn't mean the work is easier. It means that the work is precisely the point. The obsessed founder relying on external validation is always pushing. The dangerous founder relying on internal motivation is always pulling. And one hits the ceiling and the other one doesn't. And I remember one client who was crazy smart, PhD in pharmacy, absolutely obsessed. He wanted to build a business, but he didn't know what to build. And he tried every idea under the sun, dropshipping, agency, B2B SaaS, all sorts of things on the side to replace his main income. And he hit the same pattern every time. 2 weeks of real momentum, and then nothing. And every time he stopped, he had a brilliant reason why. Maybe the market was too crowded. Maybe he needed a co-founder. Maybe there was a wrong timing. See, he was always cycling through things all the people had told him will work. But the problem is that he didn't care about those things at all. those things did not represent him. When we started working together, I told him to go quiet for a long time, to really think about the things that actually matter to him, to dial in his purpose and his core values, to actually find intrinsic motivation. What was he motivated with helping people with? And turns out that he had an idea that he had never trusted himself to pursue: harm reduction for electronic dance music festival partygoers. He had the pharma knowledge, and he'd watched some of his friends get hurt with drugs, and he actually gave a damn. This wasn't very impressive, it wasn't venture backable, but it was his. And within 48 hours, he had 40 people who might be interested in his services. He was grinding DMs in event communities. He was in harm reduction forums. He was talking to local promoters. He had no proper strategy deck, no real positioning. He just had direct contact with people closer to the problem. Turns out, this is all he needed to eventually succeed. He didn't become obsessed with the problem. He became aligned with the solution. It just finally clicked that he inevitably becomes successful because he cared more about the problem than anyone else. Here's what's happening underneath it all. At the level of the brain, obsession runs on an external threat. Every setback signals you're losing. Every rejection activates the same circuitry as physical danger. So your nervous system does what it's designed to do. It moves you away from threat. And avoidance gets reinforced because skipping the hard thing briefly reduces anxiety. When you're obsessed and things don't go your way, your brain learns that the smartest thing to do is to avoid. And over time, you rewire your brain for avoidance. Alignment, though, works differently because when you're truly working on something you care about, when the work is genuinely yours, your brain stops registering effort as a threat. Rejection becomes a target for data instead of a verdict. And starting on low urgency days stops being a negotiation. Your own performance ceiling lifts and everything starts flowing. The hard part is that you probably cannot fight this fight alone. Not because you're not self-aware, but because you've probably been executing against the wrong thing for years, if not decades. So the signal is blurred. You have blind spot around it. Still, you know something's off. You just can't name it. Here's how we solve it with our clients. First, you need to excavate who you are. Strip back everything that is not yours. Everything that you do to impress others. Find what's actually underneath it. What is the specific thing you gravitate towards? Once you find it, you're ready for second phase, which is engineering, which is getting yourself to do the things you've been actively avoiding because you didn't trust you would become successful at that thing. And that is painful in the beginning because those patterns do not disappear because you found the right fight. You have to rewire them systematically. And one of the first things we teach our clients is our rejection recovery protocol, which is a precise sequence of things you do to teach your brain and nervous system that this new path is safe. And over time, you end up literally rewiring who you are by chasing something you deeply care about. And I'll end with this final question. What would you do if nobody knew? What if you could work on something and be successful, but you just couldn't talk to anyone else? The answer to that question is what you need to really truly build a business that inevitably becomes successful. Because if you obsess with success, at some point you will quit. The cost will be just too high. But if you align yourself with a version of success that is intrinsically yours, you can't help but show up every day with clarity, with focus, with consistency, building a life you can fathom not living. That's the key. That's what makes my pharmacy PhD students successful. Not dropshipping, not agency, not B2B SaaS, not coaching, harm reduction for EDM party goers. The exact people he cared about. That's what you're looking for. Excavate who you are and then engineer who you need to be to make it happen. If you need help with this and proven scientific framework to actually find your purpose and make it the core source of motivation, book a call with us. See you in the next video.